She stood there with her arms crossed, wearing those oversized sunglasses that screamed entitlement. "You're blocking my lake view," she said, pointing at the wooden fence I'd built with my own hands. Before I could even reply, the roar of machinery drowned me out. Her hired crew had already started tearing down my fence, boards cracking, dust flying, my property line disappearing one plank at a time. I ran up, shouting, "That's my fence!" But Karen didn't even flinch. "Not anymore," she said, smiling like she'd just done the neighborhood a favor. She waved a crumpled piece of paper at me, some fake HOA improvement notice. I lived outside any HOA and she knew it. Still, she had this way of acting like she owned everything she saw. When the bulldozer backed up, part of my garden went with it. My dog barked from the porch, confused, while she stood there sipping from her iced coffee, pretending it was all legal. A few of her HOA buddies clapped from across the street. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to yell or threaten her, I was going to plan. The next morning, I drove to the county office. My land records were crystal clear, every inch of that fence line belonged to me, but when I checked the map I noticed something else, a narrow, forgotten strip of land behind her property, a line that she didn't own, but I could. I signed the papers before lunch. By sunset, I had the construction crew back, same wood, same tools, same determination. Karen came running when she heard the first hammer hit. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked. I didn't answer, I just smiled, nodded to the workers and said, "Move it 2 feet that way." Her jaw dropped when she realized I was moving the new fence onto her side. The same woman who bulldozed mine to improve her view was now staring at a taller, stronger fence, one that cut her view clean in half. The next morning, she was already on my porch, pounding on the door like a cop on a drug bust. "You can't do this," she yelled. "That's my land now." I opened the door slow, coffee in hand, calm as ever. "You sure about that?" I asked. She waved her phone in my face, some blurry satellite map from Google. "See, my yard ends right there." I almost laughed. "Karen," I said, "you do know Google Maps isn't a legal document, right?" Her voice went sharp. "I'll call the HOA board, they'll make you take it down." That's when I leaned closer. "You forgot something," I said softly. "This neighborhood doesn't have an HOA." Her confidence cracked for a second, but she covered it up fast, dialing someone on speaker. "Yeah, it's me," she said. "Get the county inspector here, now." I stood there, sipping my coffee while she tried to weaponize her fake connections. But when the real county inspector showed up later that afternoon, his first words made her face go pale. "Ma'am, according to records, that fence is exactly where it should be, on his property." She started stuttering, trying to change her story. "He's lying, he forged something." The inspector looked at me. "Sir, you own this strip behind her lot too." I nodded. "Bought it last week, county approved it." Karen's mouth opened but no sound came out. She turned red, trembling with anger. "You tricked me," she screamed. I smiled just enough for her to notice. "No," I said, "you bulldozed the wrong guy's fence." She stormed off, shouting threats about lawsuits and calling her lawyer. But the best twist came a few days later when the actual HOA president showed up at her door, furious. Turns out, she'd used HOA funds to pay for the bulldozer. And now the board wanted to know why she spent their money destroying my property. That evening, I was sitting on my porch when the HOA president, an older man named Tom, walked up my driveway, hat in hand. He looked embarrassed. "Sir, I just wanted to say," he began, "none of us knew what Karen did. She told the board your fence was illegal." I shrugged. "It's fine now, the county cleared it." He sighed, shaking his head. "She used HOA funds without approval. We're doing an internal review." His voice dropped low. "But between you and me, she's blaming you for everything." Of course she was. That's what bullies do when their game collapses. Still, I stayed polite because I wasn't done yet. I had a plan to make sure she never pulled something like this again. 2 days later, I installed new security cameras, every angle covered, every sound recorded. Not because I was paranoid, but because I knew Karen wasn't finished. And I was right. That night, around midnight, motion alerts pinged my phone. I opened the feed and saw her in my yard, flashlight in hand, measuring tape stretched across the fence. She was whispering to someone on the phone, saying, "We'll move it back before he wakes up." I hit record every second of it. By morning, she was back with two guys and a small excavator. I didn't stop them, I just waited behind my curtain while they tried to dig near the posts. Then I called the sheriff. When the patrol car rolled up with its lights flashing, she froze mid-command. The deputy stepped out, recognized me, and smiled. "Morning, Sam, you got footage?" "Sure do," I said, handing him my phone. He watched the video for maybe 10 seconds before turning to her. "Ma'am, you're trespassing again." Karen tried to spin her story. "This is HOA property," she shouted. The deputy chuckled. "No, ma'am, this land belongs to him and the footage makes that clear." Her two helpers backed away quietly, pretending they didn't know her. But she kept yelling until the deputy finally said, "You can argue with me or with the judge, your call." That's when she realized this time she couldn't talk her way out. She stood there frozen, flashlight still trembling in her hand, eyes darting between me and the deputy. "You can't arrest me for this," she snapped, her voice cracking. "I'm just checking boundaries." The deputy smirked. "At midnight with an excavator." Her face went red, then pale. "You don't understand, he's manipulating property lines." The deputy turned to me. "You got those papers from the county?" I pulled the folder from my porch table, neat and ready. "Every signature, every date," I said, handing it over. The deputy flipped through, nodded once, then looked back at her. "Everything's legal, you're trespassing and causing property damage." Karen's lips trembled. "You can't do this to me," she whispered. "Oh, I'm not doing anything," the deputy said. "The law is." She tried to take a step forward, but he held up his hand. "Ma'am, I'm giving you one chance to leave quietly before I charge you." She finally backed off, muttering something under her breath about talking to her lawyer. I watched her stomp back across the lawn, but this time there was no power in her walk, no smugness, just fear. The deputy turned to me before leaving. "You did good keeping calm." Folks like her feed off reaction. I nodded, though inside I was burning, not because of the damage, because of her audacity. She treated the law like a toy, and now she was trying to play victim. But I wasn't done yet. The next day I took the footage, the property documents, and a short written statement to the county attorney's office. When the clerk saw the video, she raised her brows. "That's criminal trespass and misuse of HOA funds," she said. "You might want to sit in for the hearing next week." A week later, I walked into that hearing room. Karen was already there in her pressed blazer, pretending to be calm. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. But when the projector lit up and my footage started playing, her smile faded one frame at a time. The whole room saw it, her sneaking into my yard, her whispering, her lies unfolding in front of the board she'd once controlled. And when the HOA president stood and said, "Karen, we're voting to remove you permanently from the board," she looked like someone had just pulled the ground out from under her. I didn't say a word, I just watched her sign the removal papers with shaking hands, knowing that for the first time her view was gone for good. After the hearing, she stormed out of the county building, sunglasses back on, trying to hide her red eyes. Cameras from local news stations followed her. Apparently someone from the HOA board had leaked the story. "Local HOA chair caught trespassing on neighbor's land" was already trending by sunset. I thought that would be the end of it, I really did, but Karen wasn't the kind to accept defeat quietly. The next morning, a shiny black SUV pulled into my driveway. A man in a suit stepped out, all smooth voice and fake politeness. "Mr. Sam, I represent Ms. Hargrove," he said. "She's filing a civil suit for harassment and emotional distress." I almost laughed. "Harassment?" She bulldozed my fence. He smiled thinly. "She claims you provoked her by building the new fence out of spite." I leaned against the railing, calm as ever. "You might want to check the timestamps on those county documents," I said. "Everything's recorded." He left after realizing I wasn't intimidated. But that night I sat at my desk and started gathering everything: videos, emails, phone logs, even her fake HOA letters. If she wanted a court fight, I was ready to play it by the book. A few days later, I received a thick envelope in the mail, but it wasn't from her lawyer, it was from the HOA board. Inside was a signed letter that read, "Mr. Sam, after reviewing the situation, the HOA has voted unanimously to dissolve the leadership of Ms. Hargrove. We are also offering compensation for damages caused to your property." I smiled. Justice was starting to turn. But just as I set the letter down, I heard tires screech outside. I stepped onto the porch, and there she was again, standing at the edge of my driveway, shaking, angry, desperate. "You think you've won," she said. "You ruined my life." I stared at her quietly. "No, Karen, you ruined your own." For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but then her expression changed, something darker in her eyes. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "You don't know what I can do." Then she got back into her car and sped off down the road. I watched her go, my gut tightening. For the first time it hit me, she wasn't finished yet. That night the air felt heavier than usual. The crickets were quiet, even the lake behind my house looked still, too still. Around midnight I heard a faint crunch of gravel outside. I peeked through the window and froze. Karen's SUV was parked halfway down the road, lights off. I couldn't see her clearly, but I could feel it. She was out there watching. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera feed. Every angle of my property glowed faintly in the dark. Then I saw movement, a figure creeping near my garage holding something that looked like a gas can. My heart started pounding. She wasn't just angry now, she was losing it. I didn't hesitate, I called the sheriff directly. "It's Sam," I said, "she's here again." The dispatcher didn't even ask which she. Within minutes, 2 squad cars rolled down the street, lights flashing. The red and blue glow lit up the trees, and that's when Karen panicked. She tried to run but slipped in the mud near the fence she once destroyed. The deputies caught her quick. One of them held up the gas can and looked at me, shaking his head. "She planned to torch your property, Sam." Karen screamed as they cuffed her. "He ruined me, he stole my view, my house, my life." The sheriff looked at her like she was a ghost. "You did that to yourself, ma'am." As they led her away, she locked eyes with me. There was no fight left, just this hollow look, like she finally realized the wall she built around herself had caved in. The next morning, I found out she'd been charged with attempted arson and trespassing. The HOA publicly apologized to me, and the local news ran another story, this time titled, "HOA Chair Arrested After Retaliation Attempt." Neighbors I barely knew started waving at me again. Some even stopped by to say they'd always thought she was out of control. But I didn't gloat, I didn't post, I just rebuilt the small part of my fence she'd damaged that night. As I hammered the last nail, I looked out across the lake, the same view she'd fought so hard for, calm, peaceful, beautiful. And I couldn't help but think, sometimes people destroy everything they have chasing what someone else owns. Weeks passed and the neighborhood felt different, quieter. For the first time since I'd moved here, there wasn't any shouting across property lines or fake HOA letters showing up on doors. Karen's house sat empty, blinds drawn, mailbox stuffed with unread mail, a silent reminder of how far her arrogance had gone. One afternoon, I got a call from Tom, the HOA president. "Hey Sam," he said, "county auctions listing Karen's property next week, foreclosure, thought you'd want to know." I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Part of me felt bad, but then I remembered the bulldozer, the fake notices, the late-night trespassing. The other part of me knew she'd written this ending herself. When the auction day came, I showed up quietly. A few curious neighbors gathered around, whispering about the Lakeview house. I just listened. The auctioneer started the bid low, and within minutes the price barely reached what my fence had cost to rebuild. No one wanted her mess. No one wanted her name on their deed. Then the auctioneer looked straight at me. "Sir, you want to make an offer." I hesitated, then raised my hand. "Cash offer," I said. A few people gasped. "You're buying her place," someone whispered. The hammer dropped. Sold. 2 weeks later, the property was mine. I didn't plan to live there. I had no interest in stepping into her old world, but I had something else in mind. I tore down her old deck, the one she'd bragged about giving her the best view in the neighborhood. In its place, I built a small wooden dock that extended out into the lake. It wasn't fancy, just a few planks, a bench, and a flagpole. But when I stood there watching the sun sink into the water, the reflection of my fence standing tall behind me, it felt like something had come full circle. A reporter stopped by a few days later asking for a final quote for her follow-up story. I thought for a second, then said, "I didn't buy her house for revenge, I bought it for peace." She smiled. "That's quite a message." I nodded. "Yeah," I said quietly, "some people fight for control, I just fought for home." And as the camera clicked, the flag above the dock fluttered in the wind, a silent reminder that sometimes the best revenge is peace that can't be taken away. A few months later, the seasons changed. Autumn painted the trees around the lake gold and red, and life slipped back into its calm rhythm. But one morning, as I was fixing the dock railing, a familiar sound broke the quiet, tires crunching on gravel. I turned, half expecting another contractor or delivery truck. But it was Karen's old SUV, beaten up, dented, and clearly not hers anymore, but she stepped out of the passenger side, thinner, tired, and wearing a plain gray hoodie instead of her usual designer clothes. She stood there for a moment, staring at the house that used to be hers, then she looked at me. "I came to get some things," she said softly. "The bank said I could pick up what's left." I nodded. "It's still open. You'll find a few boxes I left by the door." She didn't move right away. Her eyes shifted to the lake, the same view she once tried to steal. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I thought if I owned everything around it, I'd finally feel happy." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, she didn't sound like the Karen everyone hated. She sounded like someone who'd lost herself chasing the wrong kind of power. I walked a little closer, careful not to sound like I was rubbing it in. "You know," I said quietly, "you could have just asked to sit by the water back then. I would have said yes." She let out a broken laugh. "Yeah, I guess I forgot how to ask for anything." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The wind moved through the trees, carrying the smell of pine and cold air. She finally picked up her boxes, glanced at me once more, and said, "You got what you wanted." I shook my head. "No, Karen, I got what you never understood, peace." She gave a slow nod, almost a bow, then walked back to the SUV. The engine sputtered, then faded into the distance. I watched until she disappeared around the bend. Then I looked out over the water again, calm, silver in the morning light. The fence stood steady, the dock caught the wind, and for the first time I realized the story wasn't about revenge at all. It was about learning when to stop fighting and start living. I sat down on the bench, the flag above me fluttering softly, and whispered to myself. She wanted the view, but I built the peace.